Where's University Reformed Church at? Well, it hasn't gone anywhere. Like I talked about on Sunday about the kingdom, that the gates of hell shall not prevail against the church. So it's true that we as a local church, though we can't meet together in person, we haven't gone anywhere. We're still around, we're still serving, we're still loving, we're still seeking to give glory to God. Your elders and staff have been calling all of you in the church and checking in on you and been praying for you. Our deacons have been serving the bodily needs of people in the congregation as those needs have become known. You, the members of University Reformed Church, have been serving one another. You've been reaching out to one person every day and seeking to love one another, writing cards and emails and making phone calls. You've been giving generously to the church during this time. We have been amazed by your generosity. You have given more in tithes and offerings to the church this April than URC has ever received in April. We are encouraged. You are continuing to serve the kingdom. You're doing that at home as you're loving your spouse and serving your spouse, as you're being gracious to your roommate, as you continue to be patient with your children and raise godly children in the home. As you work from home without your boss looking over your shoulder, you're working diligently unto the Lord because you know that you're serving and working before His eyes. As you're reaching out to your neighbors and seeking to serve them. The kingdom is continuing to be served by University Reformed Church, and you're doing it well, at least from my vantage point as your pastor, and I'm encouraged. So the question is where are we headed? Well, we're headed towards corporate worship and being back together again in person with one another where we can see one another face to face and hear one another sing and hear one another pray. We're headed there. I don't have a lot to communicate this morning about when we're headed there. I wish I had more, but it feels like I need to communicate something at this point. So let me tell you what is happening behind the scenes and what we're thinking, and I hope to have more to communicate to you Thursday, and then even more next week would be my hope. But the elders have erected a subcommittee, and that subcommittee of elders is looking into what are the phases of how we get back to in-person worship services. And so would ask you to pray for that elder subcommittee. There are a lot of things to consider, as you can imagine. There are a lot of questions. There are a lot of different moving parts for us coming back together for in-person worship. And they are laboring well together in this and considering all of these things and all of the questions together. And I would ask you to pray for them. Would you pray for them in the midst of this? There are going to be people that are going to think we moved too quickly. And there are going to be those that think that we have moved too slowly. That's fine. That's part of this. We all have different minds and we all have different consciences. And so there are going to be differences here. But I would ask you to pray for the elders. And I would ask you to continue to seek to love one another and honor one another in the midst of this. I preached on this text not too long ago at an evening service, thinking that we were headed into 2020 in a political heightened season, and thought that this would be a good text to think about together as we're on different political planes and have different political thoughts. But it's also a good reminder, I think. It came to mind this morning as we think about where we're at with COVID-19 and with some differing opinions about that. This text from 1 Peter, where Peter says this, in 1 Peter, he says it at the very beginning of verse 13. He says, "Be subject for the Lord's sake to every human institution, whether it be to the emperor as supreme or to governors as sent by him to punish those who do evil and to praise those who do good. For this is the will of God, that by doing good you should put to silence the ignorance of foolish people." And then he says this, and this is what I preached in that evening service, verse 16 and 17. "Live as people who are free, not using your freedom as a cover-up for evil, but living as servants of God." And then he says this, "Honor everyone, love the brotherhood, fear God, honor the emperor." That's a verse worth thinking about this morning and meditating upon. honor everyone, love the brotherhood, fear God, honor the emperor. We could all search ourselves, thinking upon that verse and meditating upon it, and thinking, how can I do that better to the glory of my God? I hope Thursday to give you a little more information about where we're headed, and then hopefully even more next week. But I'm praying for you, love you, and can't wait till we're back together again in person.